Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back. Today you join me in the 2022 Kia Picanto. Specifically, this one is the 1 litre turbocharged manual in GT Line S trim, which is at the top of the range. The Picanto is a bit of a dying breed really, these tiny little city super minis. There's not many of them left. You've got the Toyota Aygo, albeit in slightly jacked up crossover X form. You've also got the Volkswagen Up. But apart from that, the full KA has been discontinued, the Skoda Citigo has been discontinued. They're kind of running out. You've still got the Hyundai i10, which is a similar car to this one, but there's certainly not many left. The peppy little Picanto starts from just under 14 grand, but that one gets you a 1 litre naturally aspirated petrol with only 66 horsepower, no turbocharger, 0 to 60 in 14.1 seconds, but an average of around 58 mile per gallon combined. That one will get you a basic monochrome display with Bluetooth and that kind of thing and front collision avoidance, but not a lot of the extra toys or any of the visual stuff that you might want on one of these. It's only actually 3.5 grand more to get this top of the line GT Line S model, and this one has obviously the much more powerful 99 horsepower 1 litre turbo engine, which is much more brisk, 0 to 60 in 9.9 seconds, which is a massive improvement. And also it returns very similar economy. The actual figure is supposed to be 53 miles per gallon, so not far off the normal 1 litre. There's a good few trim levels to choose from and different options including an auto between this model and the baseline one. But to be honest, 3.5 grand for the top model versus the base model, I really don't think that's a massive premium. And let's be honest, you're going to walk into a dealership and probably get a few grand off one of these anyway. So I would personally go for this one. I really don't think it's worth going for the 1 litre engine, and the amount of extra kit you get on these models, I think it's worth shelling out for. So this 1 litre 3-cylinder then, peppy little engine. So it's obviously turbocharged, so that's quite nice. And you just get that 3-cylinder thrum, which I'm always quite keen on. It can sound a little bit rough when you ring it out. Let's stick my foot in it here. We're up to speed quite quickly there, and it does sound pretty good actually. I don't mind 3-cylinder sound at all. The only downside is you get a bit of vibration at kind of low speeds when you're just pottering around. And yeah, it's not the smoothest thing in the world, but as you can see around town, really nippy. The thing that its downside is when you're out on the motorway and stuff like that. I mean, I'm in 5th gear now, 1500 RPM, put my foot down, 50, 51, 52, 53. It's not really got much. Obviously I could downshift and get a little bit more go out of it, but it's not great at the top end. But these are designed to be city cars. They're designed to be zippy around town and nothing more. So if you're not doing that many motorway journeys, I don't think you'd be that bothered by it. And it is properly quick around town. That little turbocharger on the 3-cylinder makes such a world of difference. I'd highly recommend it over the base model naturally aspirated engine. A 1 litre naturally aspirated engine with 66 horsepower, I think is almost dangerously slow in today's world, especially as we're introducing all of these electric cars and things like that. I think, you know, trying to get out of a junction or something, sometimes you find yourself in a spot of trouble. Whereas this turbocharged unit is really zippy. As you can hear, out on the move, I'm doing 50 mile an hour along this road now, and there is quite a bit of road noise in here. That's thanks to its relatively cheap construction. Obviously, being on the bottom end of the car market, materials are quite cheap. You know, you can kind of hear it's a bit of a tin can. We've got some cheap, nasty plastics everywhere, but that's not to discredit the overall quality of the car. The build is solid. It just feels cheap and cheerful, you know, and that's to be expected in this class. It's still definitely better than some of the rivals. I can also see some exposed metal inside the car as well, so I can see the body colour. And again, that makes it feel cheap. But by today's standards, it kind of is. And like I said, you're probably not going to be paying full whack for one of these anyway. When you're below sort of 2,500 RPM, you don't really hear much of the engine either, which is quite nice for one of these small 3-cylinder units. Styling wise, I think the Picanto looks quite cool. It's kind of grown on me, especially the line at the front that blends into the lights. This particular one has the projectors, which unfortunately still have the kind of yellowed halogen bulbs in them, which is a bit disappointing for the top of the range model. I expected to have some LED units in there, but you do get some LED running lights, which do look nice during the day, and you do get some nice rear lights as well. I prefer the front to the back, but overall I think it's styled okay. I do just prefer the rear styling of the Volkswagen Up, especially in GTI variant, which I suppose this engine is quite comparable to, in all fairness. As I say, this being the top end model, the GT Line S, starts from about 17.5 grand brand new, but has a load of kit on it that you'd want in a car like this. It's got heated steering wheel, heated front seats, which is really nice, an 8-inch touchscreen with the lovely Kia infotainment that I always praise for being really responsive and really reliable, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, an upgraded sound system, also has forward collision assistance and cruise control, automatic lights, lots of mod cons. So overall then, I don't mind the styling. It's not my favourite. I do think in this category, the Fiat 500 probably is the best looking car. However, that one is obviously a bit less practical. You only get a 3-door variant, you can't get a 5-door. And yeah, just overall, it's probably not as nice to drive. I absolutely despise the red paint on this one as well, and that's not the fault of the car at all, so I can't really discredit it for that. I've seen them in black, and I think that's probably the nicest and most complementary colour you can get on one of these. Same goes for the interior. The overall quality is okay. It's kind of what you expect in this class. Like I said, lots of cheap materials, but it's okay. The steering wheel is actually really nice, the perforated leather on here, and you've got some physical buttons. My only little complaint about that is the physical buttons for the radio are on the left-hand side, which is the opposite to in other Kias. So because this is a manual, I'm obviously using my left hands to do the gear changes, so I can't really control the music from the steering wheel without taking my hand off the gear lever, so that's a bit of an oversight. I do, however, like the position of the sat-nav unit, and it is a great responsive unit, as is in most Kias, and also the physical climate controls are really nice, with big buttons for your front and rear demist, and also automatic climate control in this model. All of your heated steering wheel and seat controls are down by the gear lever, which are kind of obstructed by it, which is a little bit odd, but there's not really much else space for them because you've got cup holders and you've got a wireless phone charger down there as well, so it kind of is what you expect it to be. And there's a little bit of a cubby down here by the manual handbrake as well, but yeah, overall not too bad. Bit of a door bin with a bottle storage in, and it looks all right. The actual layout of it looks okay. The design's not as nice as in a Fiat 500, but for this class of car I quite enjoy it. And the analogue cluster in front of me is really cool as well. Really nice and bright, really clear, and you've got a little screen in the middle which shows you some basic information like trip computer, your economy, and also your speed and that kind of thing. The one thing I dislike about that is the digital speedo on there. It's got this weird animation that pulses constantly, and it's a bit distracting. I can see it in my peripheral vision like all the time. I quite like this odd honeycomb looking material on the doors, and I also like these seats as well. They've got a nice design to them in this vegan leather, and they're really comfortable and much better than some of the other seats I've sat in cars of this price range. There's quite a decent bit of adjustment, although it is all manual, but the driving position I'm not massively keen on, just because I'm relatively tall. I mean, 6 foot, okay, I'm not the tallest person in the world, but I have to have my seat quite far back to get my legs comfortable, because I've got really long, lanky legs, and I feel like I'm really reaching quite far for the gear lever and the steering wheel, which, yeah, it's just a slightly odd driving position. I would expect a bit more adjustment through the steering wheel. You can only tilt it up and down, there's no telescope, and yeah, it's just a little bit of a shame that there's not more adjustment there. But let's be honest, if you're kind of 6 foot plus, you're probably not realistically going to be in the market for one of these sort of size cars anyway. There is a reasonable amount of space in the front though, and also in the back. I'm surprised that in my driving position, there is still enough room to sit back there. Sure, it wouldn't be comfortable for a long journey, but considering how small this car is, actually the rear seat room isn't as bad as you might expect. The boot's not bad either. I mean, there's definitely a massive load lip, which you kind of have to expect with the shape of the car, but it's quite deep, and also you can fit your shopping in there and maybe a suitcase or two, and you can fold the rear seats down. It's a 60-40 split for quite a generous extra bit of space, albeit of course it's not flat. You do get a lip with the seats, but that's not the end of the world. To be honest, the practicality for a car of this size is better than I would have expected it to be. So it's not the best car for the highway driving, but let's see how it actually performs. I'm going to take this roundabout. I do this one quite a lot in my reviews, and it's a roundabout that's quite big and quite wide. So I'm in second, turbo kicks in. I'm going to try and test the limits of the grip a little bit here. It really grips well, to be honest. Like, you can see how much I'm leaning, and I'm not exaggerating at all. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I mean, that's good fun. It's kind of got that old hot hatch recipe, you know, sort of like in the 90s when hot hatches were sort of 100 to 150 horsepower and naturally aspirated engines that you could wring right out. Now, I know this has got a turbo, so it's a little bit more peppy and it's not quite like that, but it still has that kind of feel to it, that sort of analogue old school feel. And I always say that when I get in a car with one of these little 3-pot engines, manual gearbox, small and lightweight, something like this. A Volkswagen Up GTI is a very close rival to this, to be honest, because even though this isn't designed to be like a sports model, it's got around that sort of power. And yeah, it just has that same sort of peppy feel to it. The gear changes are nice and fairly short throw, quite notchy. It's got a satisfying feel to it. The brakes are responsive enough for the weight of the car. And the steering, although it is a little bit kind of soft and wallowy on centre, when you actually start turning, you get enough feedback from the road to know what's going on with the tyres. There's not much kind of in the way of texture, but it's enough for you to have fun with, and it grips surprisingly well, especially for the wheelbase of the car. You'd expect it to understeer like a pig, or either that or just kind of start feeling like it's getting unsettled, but for the most part it performs really well. This bit is where it struggles on the highway. So I'm doing 1500 RPM now, put my foot down, nothing. Let's change down into fourth, 2.5k, foot down, 50, 55, 60. So it does get there, but it's just not rapid. But it does what it says on the tin at the end of the day. And the car's sole purpose is to be a little city zipper. So let's get to some smaller, tighter roads and see what we can do. It's a peppy little thing when you're throwing through the gears, throwing it around little bends. On a B road, it's just a joy. The trouble is, modern hot hatches, you're looking at like 300 horsepower, automatic transmission, and yeah, they're proper machines, but you don't get that same experience that you do in something like this. Look at this little mini roundabout here. I'm gonna just go all the way around this, confuse the hell out of this driver here. God, look at the turning circle on it, it's incredible. And I can just zip out, thrash it into third. It's just such a blast. That's where the little 1 litre turbo really comes into its own. Sounds quite good too. Look at this, I'm turning in quite hard here and it's just gripping. It's quite a slippery day out here as well. I'd probably understeer there in my TT. Yeah, it's so nippy when you ring it out. Let's change down and get into this corner here. Oh, and the manual gearbox is really good for what it is. When at the end of the day, I think this poses a little bit of a better value proposition than something like an Up GTI, because you get more kit, and of course you get the Kia quality of life stuff like the driver profile sharing and the shortcut button and just some of that stuff that works really well in this as a day-to-day driver. Plus your 7-year 100,000 mile warranty, excellent. So if you were to go into a dealership and get one of these second hand, you're probably going to get quite a lot of money off, plus you still get loads of warranty on it. What's not to love about that? I'm even on a hill now, we've got hill hold assist, and this clutch is quite easy to get to grips with. It's got kind of a relatively easy to find biting point, which sometimes can be a little bit vague in cars of this kind of engine size. Plus rear doors on a car of this size, still really helpful. And it doesn't shout about it. It's not in your face with the design. It's quite understated and classy. And in your day-to-day, it's going to be cheap to run, cheap to insure, cheap to tax. Economy-wise, my average has been more like 40 miles per gallon. I could probably get more if I tried, but I've been quite lead-footed in it, having some fun. But that's by no means a bad figure, let's be honest. I do think though at full price it's quite a hard sell. For the same sort of money you could probably get yourself in something like an Ibiza FR 110, which the engine is a 3-pot similar to this, but a little bit more powerful. I think the gearbox feels very similar in that, but it has a bit more of a nice sound to it and a bit more refinement in terms of how smooth the engine is, I think. I got a little bit of kind of induction sound in that car, which I really enjoyed. I really added to sort of the experience. I also just can't get away from the fact that you get a lot more car on the used market, something with a lot better build. For example, my 2017 Audi TT Quattro, over double the power, much nicer quality, and yeah, just a lot more features. That was the same money as this is new. So, you know, it really depends, but of course I don't have a warranty like this does. It's going to cost more to run and so on and so forth. It's impractical in comparison to this. So it swings and roundabouts, but you see what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot on the used market that you could get for 17 grand that would just be better value. But at the end of the day, I think most people who buy a car like this are the sort of people who go into a main Kia dealership anyway, and they're not going to charge you full whack for it. They might be able to sell you one off the forecourt for a bit of a discount, or they might be able to find you a good PCP deal on one. So I really don't think there's much to grumble about. And when you look at the rivals, such as the Fiat 500, which is a little bit more expensive, the Hyundai i10, which I don't think is quite as good, or, you know, the ones that have been discontinued, I think the only other one that I would be looking at is the Toyota Aygo X, because it's a little bit more modern with its kind of crossover style, and I quite like the quirks and features of the interior. Overall though, I don't think you can really go wrong with this if you're looking for a brand new small city car. It really is a laugh if you get it in the 1 litre turbo, and I think it's worth going for the top of the range one because you're going to get it for a good price anyway. So if you're on the market for a used Kia Picanto, it's important that you do a car history check before you purchase any car. You can use my Car Vertical affiliate link in the description below to get yourself 10% off, or use code DANLAT. What that will do is it will search any databases for any thefts, mileage rollbacks or accidents that have happened with a car before you purchase it, to make sure that it doesn't have a shady past. It even includes things like pictures of any previous write-offs or advertisements to make sure that you're getting a good deal. So there we have it, the 2022 Picanto, a zippy little city car that's a dying breed. If you're in the market for something that's quite fun to thrash around, but you just want something really small, really economical, and really nice to live with day to day, then this would definitely be a good option for you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Kia UK for sending me out the vehicle as always, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.